You are about to enter a great adventure.
This is Strutting from Gorilla.
Hey everybody, SFG is back with you guys, and we're very excited because Vito and I got to go to TNA Bound for Glory over this past weekend, and we're excited to talk with you guys all about it. So first, let's hand it over to Vito, though.
Yeah, so great time at TNA Bound for Glory. We'll get into in a minute here, but I'm going to add this video in so everyone can watch it. It's a quick recap of the seats that we had from the video. So if you're listening on the podcast, you might not be able to see it. Hopefully you guys can hear the audio. Not sure if it's going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. Pretty awesome.
That was amazing. That was such a fun show to go to.
It really was.
And great for TNA. I think they broke an indoor attendance record for themselves.
I believe they did. I think both me and you knew going into this that it was going to be a packed house. I didn't know it was going to be that packed. But what I will tell you is that I loved the venue. I loved how intimate the experience was. Those are the best seats that I'll probably sit in. We were like 7 rows from the ring. That's not going to happen at a WWE event anytime soon with the way the prices are. So I just thought it was a really intimate setting. What did you think, Mikey?
I agree with you. I really liked the layout of it. It was like you said, it's very intimate. Everybody felt like you were on top of the action, and there wasn't a bad seat in the house, it looked like. And we were able to kind of walk around a little bit, and we were going to get food and drinks and stuff. It was so easy to get around, and you could have a good view of the ring pretty much wherever you were in the arena. So I think that just lent itself for just like a nice experience. You didn't feel like you were really missing anything even when you got up to go get stuff. So I really liked that aspect of it. I wasn't missing any of the action, even when I had to get up, bathroom, all that stuff. So it was awesome. And I'm in total agreement with you about the prices of seats these days, because there's no way that I could afford a floor seat at any sort of WWE event without not paying my mortgage.
Yeah, no, it's really true. And I also liked at the beginning of the show, I talked about it being really intimate, right? And what I mean by that is, like, at the beginning of the show, the announcer came out, and like they do at AEW and they do in WWE, they get the crowd going. But being more intimate is meaning like they came out and actually got the crowd involved, right? They did like a dance off between two guys. They had an older woman come and give a promo to be the grandma. They got a grandma knockout, and then they also did like a chants from the crowds, right? Which you can get that at any event, but it set the stage for a really fun evening. And along with that piece, it's great to see the effort from the wrestlers. Like, they're in a different setting, right? They're not on this main stage WWE where they have all the bright lights on them. They're all fighting to get to the next level, right? So you could feel that with almost every performance that we saw, right? I don't know. Maybe it was just a bigger show because they had the TNA Hall of Fame ceremony beforehand. So maybe it got people fired up. It was the Dudleys and the Hardys, and it was the last table, right? The last match for the Dudleys. Maybe that added to it. Maybe they're not used to a crowd that big, so it amplified it even more. Regardless, you could feel the effort and the passion coming from them. Also, we had really good seats, so you could see a lot more too.
I'm in total agreement with you. I think it was of everything that you're bringing up. I think it was all of the above. I think it was the fact that they were on this bigger stage, the fact that Bound for Glory is essentially their WrestleMania, which is why they had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony beforehand. And which, just as an aside, I really enjoyed that. I thought it other Hall of Fame ceremonies could learn a thing or two from the brevity of TNA's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It was only two inductees, Velvet Sky and Angelina Love, aka the Beautiful People, and Mickey James. I thought they did a wonderful job with that. I really liked I liked the little dreamer segment that they had where they put the bag over his head and whatnot. But anyway, I really enjoyed that. But I do feel like TNA, even though they have this relationship with WWE and it's like, NXTNA, that kind of thing, I still believe that TNA is sort of like the little company that could now. They were really sort of in the valley for a long time, and I see a company that's on the upswing. Everybody in there was working so incredibly hard, and it just seems like they seem so true to themselves. And what I mean by that is they're not trying to be anything different than who they are. And the company itself has its own identity of, this is just who we are. You'll like us or you won't, and that's okay. We're not trying to appeal to every demographic. And I think one of the benefits of that is what we saw from a lot of the people in the crowd. There's a lot of TNA like loyalists that are there, and that fan base is just so incredibly appreciative of them. I just love it. I think it's different than other crowds, and I wish that I could explain it better. And being someone on a podcast, you would think I'd be better able to articulate that. But Vito, I think you got that sense too when you're in it. You could just feel it. Like, this feels like a different kind of crowd. It doesn't feel like a WWE crowd. It doesn't feel like an AEW crowd. It's a TNA crowd, and they're excited to be there. And I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is. There's sort of a pure excitement aspect to it. There isn't like a snarkiness that sometimes you'll see with an AEW crowd. There isn't sort of just this kind of, there can be a blandness with a WWE crowd when you're there. This was different.
No, I 100% agree. And I realized that when we walked in and we met the people next to us, and they started talking about the matches that they were excited for. And they told me which ones were going to steal the show. And we got a new follower out of the deal. So I felt that very much. What I will say is I have been a TNA fan for a while. I can't tell you I've watched it religiously, but I remember in 2005, I was maybe even 2004, whenever it first came out, and it was only pay-per-views. I watched it on television, and it was pay-per-view only. And I was home from school sick, and I was feeling terrible. And I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, can I buy this pay-per-view? It's $10. I've never heard of TNA. And I watched it and I loved it. And so I started watching it kind of here and there because WWE didn't have WCW to go against. And it was, you're right, it was a breath of fresh air. You had Shark Boy on there, Samoa Joe, all the old school guys, Jeff Jarrett, Abyss, and like I knew who they were before anybody else did, and it was great. And I remember telling you later on, this is when they had the the 6-sided ring. I remember telling you years later, probably like 2011, 12 maybe. I was like, dude, you got to watch TNA. It's getting really good. And you started diving in, and I think you felt the same way I did. And then it went through a weird phase where Dixie Carter was involved, and then they had like Hulk Hogan and Bischoff, and started watching a little bit more, and it kind of went off the rails. They had a period where Vince Russo was back in there, and they were just doing an everything on the pole match like they always did. But there was another period where they brought ECW back, and they had a lot of ECW wrestlers, and it seemed like it was another option. Maybe they didn't have the money that the AEW does now, but it was another option at the time that was great. And now that it's kind of resurging with this WWE alliance, I think it's great to go back and honor those people. And that's what we saw at the TNA Hall of Fame induction, right? We saw the beautiful people who are originals. And there was a great induction with Tommy Dreamer. And then we saw Mickey James come out, who was a 2-time TNA person. She started there, went to WWE, then came back when she was kind of lost in her career, and made a whole new identity with hardcore country. And it was a really good induction. It was quick, it was easy, and we saw Victoria. Victoria was there.
Victoria was cool.
She inducted Mickey James, which was great. And even the president of the company came out and watched the ceremony. So you could tell it's like a small family atmosphere in the backstage, and it comes across with their production.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was really well done, the show overall, and I was so happy it was such a success, and the show itself was, I thought, really great from top to bottom.
Yeah, let's talk about it a little bit. Let's go through some of the matches. We started out, we talked about the Hall of Fame induction already. Names. Yeah. Then they had like a dark match. I wouldn't even say it was a dark match. What did they call it? The pre-show match?
It's a pre-show.
Yeah, and it was the Inspiration versus the Elegance brand.
I thought it was pretty good. It's for people who don't know who the Inspiration are. They were formerly the Iconics in WWE. They are the current TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions right now, and I thought they had a really great match with the Elegance brand. I think the Elegance brand itself, like that faction, has taken a hit recently because, as some people might know, Ash by Elegance, aka Dana Brooke in WWE. She was the TNA Knockouts champion up until recently, when she had to vacate the title. And unfortunately, it kind of seems like she's not going to be able to wrestle again, which it just really sucks. But she did come out with them. We didn't get to see it from our vantage point, from where we were on the floor. But when I watched it again, I saw that she actually came out with them during their entrance for this match. So it was really cool just to see her, still involved in being able to come out with them. So, but
yeah. I would also say that it was rushed. I think the Hall of Fame ceremony went a little longer than it was supposed to.
Yeah.
And you could tell that they had to cut the match down a little bit. But even then, I thought it was still good. I thought it was it was a great match to watch, quick, easy, to the point, and enjoyed that one. And then we got right into Bound for Glory. And we had Steve Maclin versus Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah, I thought that, Steve Maclin really shined in this match. And it seems like, he was somebody who, for folks who maybe followed him in NXT, he was part of the Forgotten Sons faction, and with like Jackson Riker and all those guys. So, it's really good to see him getting his footing as a single star now, and to go up against somebody that is such a staple in TNA like Frankie Kazarian, who, by the way, is just still crushing it. And I think he gives hope to people approaching their 40s about, being able to sort of maintain a physique and athleticism. So it was really great to see that match. It seems like the crowd is really starting to get behind Macklin as a single star, and this hopefully is a springboard for him to regain the international championship and kind of see where he goes from there. But I thought this was a great way to start the show. It was a lot of energy, and the crowd was really into it.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would say. You could feel the energy coming from them both, actually. I thought it was a good match. I also, again, loved that the president, Carlos Garcia, came out and awarded the belt to Steve Macklin. It was a good moment, right? You don't see that very often anymore. So I like that. It was a really great high energy start to the show, and I think the crowd was pretty into it.
Yeah, I liked it. I think going on to the next match was Tessa Blanchard versus Gia Miller. And Gia Miller is an announcer. She's a trained wrestler, but she's an announcer. And the story, it was actually carrying over from the last TNA show I was at, which was Slammiversary over in Long Island, where after Tessa Blanchard lost her match, she attacked Gia Miller, just roughed her up pretty bad. And so this was sort of a blow off of that. It was basically a squash match. Gia Miller didn't get like a ton of offense in. Tessa Blanchard is just an incredible wrestler, so I think she just sort of outclassed her in that, and still ended up cheating to win, which I thought was kind of peculiar. Maybe just to sort of drive home how much of a heel she is. But for me, it was what it was. It was kind of quick, and I think it needed to be. I'm looking for Tessa Blanchard to get into more, I think, interesting rivalries now, because I just think she's such a great wrestler, and like she needs to be with somebody who's going to be able to showcase that for her.
And I don't know a lot about the TNA women's roster, but it doesn't seem nearly as strong as the WWE's or NXT's roster at the moment. And I'm hoping maybe you'll get some crossover with NXT and Tessa Blanchard, because I think that would be really helpful.
Absolutely. I could see her maybe going up against Kalani at some point, because Indy, what we'll talk about in a few, like, she's had a few shots already. So I kind of feel like maybe it's time for a new challenger to step up.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say it was a decent match. It was one of those matches that, like, it was there and it was okay. Neither one of them did anything wrong. It was still, a decent match, but the storyline was a little strange to have your best women's wrestler probably on the roster go up against an announcer. Little different. So then we got into the Call Your Shot Gauntlet, which, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know the format. I didn't quite understand the format. I was kind of learning as we went along, but it was essentially like a little Royal Rumble, like with women and men combined. And that's really what it was. And I liked it. I thought it was exciting. I didn't know who the hell was going to come out. And we got to see some people that we knew from past and present.
I really liked it. And one of the pieces of this match that makes it a little different than a Royal Rumble is that this Call Your Shot Gauntlet match it kind of remains a battle royal up until the last two participants, and then it turns into a singles match. So I like that piece of it. I thought that was actually pretty cool. I also enjoyed like the intergender aspect of it, and TNA kind of leaned into that during this show, and I thought it was really well done. I feel like it's just can be difficult to do when I've seen it done in a lot, like very small promotions, and it's done a certain way. And so to see how a company like TNA, which is a bit of a bigger company, how do you translate something like that? Because there's still a lot of, people have a lot of strong opinions about having intergender matches, and people all over the spectrum about it. So I feel like when you're gonna do something like that, you really got to be able to pull it off well. And I thought TNA did a good job of that, of making it believable. The spots that everybody was involved with made a lot of sense. And I thought it was fun. I think the only thing I had a problem with was the 1994 Royal Rumble outcome they had here with the dual winners.
Yeah, the dual winners wasn't great. I think the whole crowd, you have this great build up, this great match, and everyone was into it, and then it's like there's no payoff, right? And I bet it's going to go into a storyline moving forward between Frankie Kazarian and Nick Nemeth, but I don't know. Didn't love it. I did love that we saw Matt Cardona come out.
Oh yeah,
and
always ready.
And Santino Marella came and entered the gauntlet and entered it, left as quickly as he entered, which was great. It was a great spot. Got a good chuckle. I think everybody did.
Yep.
But, like I said, I think we both enjoyed it. We just did not like the ending. Like the ending was brutal.
And we were not alone. The whole
no, yeah.
Everybody in the Songus Arena in Lowell was very unhappy with that ending.
Yeah, I got to tell you, like, just as an overall, like, the booking on some of this stuff, like, the matches were great, but some of the results were not fantastic. And from my hearsay of what I hear from people, it tends to be that way with TNA sometimes. So, take it for what it is, but doesn't change the fact that we enjoyed the match.
Whoever's really booking the finishes sometimes must really have loved the Attitude Era, because a lot of this stuff feels like the little schmosses at the end. We're like, oh, we didn't really have a clear winner here at all.
Yeah.
So
we went from that match to then we went to the Knockout World Championship match between Kalani Jordan and Indy Hartwell.
So, I kind of feel bad that I'm going to say this, because I like Indy Hartwell and I like Kalani Jordan. I think they're both really good wrestlers. But it seemed like they were off all night. It just seemed, I don't know what it was. And listen, I'm not a wrestler, so I don't know what it's like when you're kind of just having a rough night at the office and things just aren't syncing up the way maybe they had imagined. Maybe somebody forgot something. It just seemed hard to get into it. It's like you could tell the crowd was kind of struggling to get into it. It felt like they were struggling to find their rhythm the whole time. Like they labored to get through that match, and I give them a lot of credit for it, because I don't know from a performance standpoint, like what's going through your mind at that point when it's not going great, and you can kind of feel that it's not going great from the crowd's perspective too. That can be tough, but they got through it, and now it's just moving forward.
Yeah, the highlight of that match was the beginning, in my opinion, when the person behind us yelled out, "I love you, Indy, say it back," and she broke. Like, you saw her smile and laugh, and that was the highlight of the match to me. I just that was a rough one. I think the crowd was, we could hear them. They were like, "All right, pin her, get it over with." Like, it was not the best. And you're right, it was some sort of chemistry was off between the two of them, for whatever reason. But that's it is the way that it goes. So I would say that was the low point of the night at Bound for Glory. But moving on to the next match was the intergender hardcore war between the System and Order 4.
This was like my pleasant surprise of the night, because I thought it had like a war gamey feel that just wasn't double-sided ring or anything like that. Like, I thought it was cool. Like, and this was another one where it was intergender. So, and some of the spot that they had in that match with Alicia Edwards getting just absolutely manhandled onto the tacks was crazy. I think that's like in my own mind. Like, when I'm watching an intergender match, I'm like, oh no, the woman's not gonna like go into a tack spot. And like that's my own issue, that I thought that. And I was so glad to be wrong, because it was a wild spot. Like, credit to her. What a great wrestler to be able to like do something like that. Made it look great. And then she was also involved in that other spot that was in the video that we just showed of Mustafa Ali doing like the 450, and he lands just stomach first into a pile of tacks. Unbelievable. There was a staple gun spot, and it was insane, but in a great way. I had such a fun time watching that match.
Yeah, it was good. I again, much like the gauntlet match, I didn't understand what was going on or how it worked. So, it was still fun. I still really enjoyed it. I think one of the guys was a hometown Boston guy. His friends were in front of us, and it was pretty exciting. But I loved it. And then I forget the gentleman's name, the big dude who came out. What a beast!
Oh, Moose. Moose is
No,
the
not
man,
Moose.
dude.
The guy on Order 4.
Oh,
The
yeah,
big dude. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but big dude, man. He was vicious.
Oh,
Vince McMahon would have a hard on for him.
I think I think Vince was probably watching him there. I did.
Yeah.
Somewhere, somewhere Vince is twiddling that weird villain mustache that he's got now. So
That's some good shit.
that was wild. And also credit to my girl Tasha Steeles coming out in her Yankee jersey. I was go Yanks. That was great.
Yeah.
So get that heat.
Yeah, cheap pop in Boston. That's an easy way to get a cheap pop. No, I thought it was good. I again, really great match. And then we moved along to the TNA X Division Championship, right? Between Leon Slater and Javon Evans, which I would tell you most people that I spoke with, including myself, thought this was going to be the match of the night that stole it. And I don't think anybody was wrong.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, from start to finish, this was incredible. It felt like, when we used to watch like a DVD of like a wrestler and their career, and they were like, this match is really what was like a turning point for me. This feels like that's going to be the match for Leon Slater and Javon Evans. Like, what a turning point match for both of these guys. They're so incredibly gifted. They're so athletic. And for them to be able to do, we call it the flippy floppy, right? And I know that I don't always give it a lot of love, and because sometimes flippy floppy stuff doesn't make any sense. However, in this match, they sold, and there was kind of a reason behind what they were trying to do, and it made sense. And it was, for me, it was flippy floppy at its best, and that's what you got. The things that these guys were doing were just incredible, and the crowd was, I feel like we were on our feet the whole time. Every time we were like about to sit down, they were going to do something else. So it's just, they kept you engaged the whole time. Like, it was sort of incredible pacing when I really think about it. Like, there wasn't a real lull in that match. It was sort of high the whole time up until the finish.
That seems like a theme, right? But the finish was not good. But one thing I want to compare this to is think about Jericho and Shawn Michaels. We got that very late in their careers, mostly late in Shawn Michaels' career. But it had that same weird feeling, like you're watching like the mirror of somebody else, right? And these two are both young, upcoming stars that are very athletic, very similar. I'm not comparing these two are like Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. I'm just saying that the match, when you compare two people, is very similar. And you could see it. It was almost like they were trying to mirror each other's moves, like at the beginning. And they were looking at each other like, oh, I do that. You can't do that. And that was pretty cool. And then it was like friendly, and then it got a little heated, right? And they were popping off the ropes and jumping all over the place. And I'm with you on the flippy floppies. Like, I'll take it when it comes and it's good. But you overdo it a lot, which we see, and it's not real wrestling. But the way these guys pulled it off together is something that's exciting to watch. If you can get someone who gives as much as they take on that, I think you're going to get a match. I think you're going to get a match that we saw, and probably could have been a match of the year candidate. And then the ending happened where there was no winner. I think it's kind of, you got to think like this is TNA and NXT, and who's going to get over who, and I get it, but the ending just sucked. Like, the crowd booed like crazy. I mean, first of all, they stopped the match because of the time limit. Then they drew us back in by saying, no, this is going to have another 5 minutes. another 5 minutes, and then they get the interference from the what is it, the Dark Order?
Dark State.
Dark State. And it just, I mean, I will tell you, they got some serious heat though.
You know what? I was
Worst
saying
heat
it
of
to you
the
when we
night.
were in the crowd, is that like those guys were probably pumped because I don't know how much heat those guys have been getting on NXT TV recently. So the fact that they got it the way they did, that's is pretty solid. I bet they were like, all right, this is good. This is good
We
for us.
we got an F these guys chant, which doesn't happen all that often. So
Oh,
they got heat. They got Dom Mysterio
they
heat.
got some
Dirty Dom heat.
Dom heat the
Yeah,
other night.
for sure. Great match though, and I think anyone would agree. Then we went on and which I think was the match of the night. Not I think it was the match. When I
This
say
was the
match of the night,
emotional match of the night.
right? When I say it's the match of the night, I mean it was the match that everyone I feel like showed up to see.
Sure,
right? It was
sure.
the last match between the Hardys and the Dudleys, and it was really the Dudleys' retirement match, right?
Mhm.
And we interviewed the Hardys before this, and we got all excited about this match. And I think they put on the best show that they could. And I thought the match itself was fine, right? The match itself
Yep.
was fine. I was fine with it. What really got me though was the ending. I found myself like more emotional than I actually thought I was going to be. And the way they ended it, I felt like was pretty good. I think you put it best as like it was like a Ric Flair ending, right? Very similar to that. But I think that is the type of ending that the Dudleys would want, right? An emotional one. They pour their heart into this business. They're probably the most decorated tag team of all time. Shout out to checking out our spotlight episode on the Dudleys if you want to go back in our archives. We just did a spotlight episode on them. But I don't know, Mike. I'll give you my 2 cents here, and then you can give me yours. I definitely got emotional when it was the end, and they took off their boots and handed them to the Hardys. More emotional than I thought. But I also was a little concerned going into this match when we saw the Dudleys came out. They had Spike Dudley come out with them, which is a great surprise. I was pumped for that, honestly. That was one of my most exciting moments of the night. And then they come in, and Devon was struggling, man, and it rightfully so, And I think even with all of that, it turned out to be a good match.
I'm with you. I think this match was really driven by nostalgia more than anything. And they just wanted to do right by the Dudleys, the Hardys did, and to give them a send-off that I think they really deserved. They never got that chance in WWE. They had that little final run, but it kind of ended with a whimper, if I'm being honest. So I think if I was in their shoes with the career they had, I'd be feeling like something's missing there. I'd like just one more little shot here, just kind of finish things
Agreed.
off, like put a bow on it. And I thought that doing it with the Hardys was the best way to do that. They're one, you can trust them. Two, there's so much history there, and I think that yeah, the Hardys might have carried it, but I that's fine. It doesn't to me. It didn't take away from the match. We knew what it was going to be going into it. I wasn't expecting, the TLC 2 match here from 2001.
Right.
Like
No, right.
that's the wrong expectation. Also great to see Spike. I was surprised we didn't see him have a little run in, but that's all right.
And
That's
throw
fine.
him into the crowd. Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah. And like you, I was emotional at the end. And when I think back to it, and I might have said this to you right after the match was over, there is in my own mind, in my own head canon, there was one thing I would have done differently. And I know it's a nitpick, but hear me out. At the end of that match, when Bubba's standing there, he's at the table, and they're about to kind of do the little like Ric Flair HBK, like I'm sorry, I love you kind of spot. At that moment, Jeff and Matt were both holding chairs, and for a split second, I thought to myself, they're going to give him a concerto, and he'll get on the table, and then Jeff will do him a swanton through, and like that, and then that's it. But I just thought that would have been a great like little homage to like the two guys that are missing from that. that were just so synonymous with those two teams. But that's just me dreaming. I can't get too in the weeds about that. But I thought it was just a really great ending to a very storied career. I think we were all kind of teary-eyed at the end, just sort of watching this kind of part of our childhood, these people we grew up with, seeing it come to an end. It's incredibly sad.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you said it best. The Dudleys wouldn't have been able to do this in WWE, right? It wouldn't have happened. And it wouldn't have been done right. And I think this was the way they wanted it done. And I thought it was good. It was definitely what you want out of wrestling, whether you like it or not, is you want emotion, right? You want to feel happy, you want to feel angry, you want to feel emotion, and you got it from that. And listen, I said it in our Spotlight episode. I will say it again. Bubba Ray Dudley can get emotion out of people. He can. And I think the way they did it was a perfect ending to what his career was. So that's my 2 cents on it. But great spot. I'm glad we were there, and be able to watch that back and say we were there for that one is pretty cool. But you're right. It is definitely like watching a little bit of your childhood kind of walking away, getting old, right? And it's tough to see. So anyways, last match of the night. I think we both stated this, but we were both happy that the Hardys match wasn't the last match of the night. And I still stand by that. But when you have that emotion from that Hardys Dudley match, it's tough to follow. And you could see the crowd thinning out at the end there. Not that I think the match with Trick Williams and Santana was bad. I just think like when you're emotionally spent, you've already hit that high. Like, it's tough to watch this. And I feel like also everyone knew Santana was going to win because, it's the TNA championship, and it's time to take it off Trick Williams.
This is what made me really regret their decision not to do that title change when they were in New York.
Yeah.
Being there at the time when he came out at Slammiversary, that one, the pop for him was incredible. And just being in the hometown, I think it would have just made sense. I don't know why they didn't, but perhaps because this was their WrestleMania. So I think this is kind of the idea of like you do one big, the big title match, right? And you have the final payoff. With that said, they were in a tough spot because, like you said, the crowd's emotionally spent at this point, and it's kind of got that like going on after Rock and Hogan. It's like everyone's exhausted. Everyone's been, this is crazy. So I think even with that, this match was good. It's a good match. These guys are two great workers, and Trick, the character work by that dude is incredible. I love his charisma. He's such a good heel. I hope it continues for him, whether it's back in NXT or like I expect to see him on the main roster by the end of the year. But I think Mike Santana has an incredible story. I think his character is all driven by redemption, and he shares a lot in his story about his struggles with addiction and being able to work through that and to come back and be the performer that he is. So I think this was just an incredible story. We did get to see his family was all at ringside. I thought that was just such a great sight, and it was just like really heartwarming. And when he finally does win, being able to have that moment with his daughter in the ring, I mean, if that doesn't elicit emotion from somebody, then your heart's made of stone.
No, it's
to be
true.
able to share a moment like that with your family, with your child, that's incredible.
Yeah, I also think their thought process behind it was probably, hey, you got this incredibly sad moment. Let's end it with a really strong TNA moment, not necessarily a moment that was created in another company. We gave them their respect, but we're going to end this main event with a TNA moment, and it's going to be a good, happy moment. And they did. And that's why I said I'm not upset with the way they did it.
No,
it was just it was just tough at the end when you saw people leaving left and right. And I also think it's a Sunday night in Lowell. Everyone had a long drive, right? So that'll happen. But to wrap it up, overall, great event, man. Like I said, TNA has been, you're right. You said it best. The little engine that just keeps chugging along. I liked it. I would absolutely go to another TNA event. No questions.
Oh, sure.
Down. And I look forward to see where they go from here.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. I really want to go to another one, and we'll see what we can do. I'm looking forward to it. But a lot more great things to come from TNA, I bet. All right. Well, any other final thoughts from you, Vito? Or are we ready to wrap up?
I got nothing. Just keep a lookout. We'll probably have some more episodes coming up. We got the final stretch of John Cena's tour coming up. We will be at one of the final locations in Boston, Mass, to see him live. He's got four matches or 4 appearances left. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. We'll be hanging out in the old suite with Mike Sarge Riley. So shout out to Mike. I think it'll be great. Who knows? We might tear up there too. All right, everybody. Well, glad you guys could join us for our review of TNA Bound for Glory. Like Vito said, keep an eye on the feeds. We got a couple things in the works and have some good episodes coming your way. But until next time, keep on strutting, jabronis.